This is not the original, right?
No, the original is in the bank.
Seriously, where is the original?
It's in the bank. It's on its way to the Smithsonian, actually.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Julie, you want to steal it?
I do. I wanted to rub it. I want to look inside. I wanted to live in that bottle. That was like the...
We established earlier that Julie's a kleptomaniac.
I saw that, yes.
Have you ever stolen anything from a hotel?
Well...
Or anything, anywhere?
You know, I worked a lot in hotels, so I can't really say I stole something. Yes.
It followed you home.
Of course I have. You talked about the
Salt and pepper.
salt and pepper, or the little needles and threads.
The sewing
things
kit.
they put there. Of course.
Well, that's not stealing. You're so good.
Yeah, that's good. Now, I Dream of Jeannie first premiered in 1965, so because of the time, I heard there were a lot of strict guidelines that they gave you.
Well, everybody knows about my belly button.
They couldn't show it.
Oh yeah, couldn't show it.
Because it was pierced, or they wouldn't... I want to know.
Not in those days. We didn't pierce then. No, because it was there. You know, they didn't want it to be seen. And then the pantaloons all had to be lined. They didn't want a leg to show through. During the pilot, of course, it did. And the smoke couldn't stay in Larry's bedroom. The bottle could never be in his bedroom. You always had to see the smoke exit under the bed, under the door. Yeah.
Those little
Silly.
things. You never realized. I never picked up on any of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Early in your career, your original name was Barbara Huffman, and then it became Eden, which is also a beautiful name. What brought about that change? Was it your decision, someone else?
It was my agent. My agent said it sounded like a doctor. And I said, well, you can change the last name, but I won't respond to anything but Barbara. So the next time I saw him, he said, how about Eden? I said, fine. Fine. You know, it's short.
And it's worked.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned in your book some of Hollywood's leading men, like Elvis. Your experience with Elvis?
Ooh.
So handsome.
Oh, yeah.
What was he like?
He was lovely. He was a gentleman. He was one of those guys who'd been brought up to stand up when a girl comes in the room, offer her a chair. He'd get me water. He was just a delight.
And you gave him some advice, right?
Well, we'd sit there and talk, you know, between scenes, because feature films, there's a lot of time, as you know, in between. And his daddy was there, and his cousins. I thought they were cousins. They were his friends. They all had their guitars, and they'd play. And Elvis would talk. He asked me, because at the time I was married to an actor, Michael Ansara. And, Cochise. And he asked how did we make a marriage work, both of us being in the industry. And he said he was thinking about getting married. And he said, but I'm a little worried about her. She's over in Germany. And he says, she's a little young.
Yeah.
He didn't tell me how young, you know, at the time. But it was, he was darling. He was darling.
And what about working with Larry Hagman?
No!
that was a movie in itself.
Oh, it was.
Behind the scenes.
It was fun. It was fun. Larry, I must say, Larry is the warmest, nicest person and the best actor I've ever worked with. Wonderful. We were on the same wavelength. At the time we shot I Dream of Jeannie, Larry was very disturbed, but he never took it out on me. It was mostly on himself. He was his own worst enemy, you know. But it was kind of fun, you know. You'd watch the show. See, what's he doing now? What's going on now?
Sounds like a drama behind the scenes of a comedy. Well, we're going to have much more with Barbara Eden when we come right back.
The call came at 3 a.m. on June 26, 2001. For the past 14 years, whenever my telephone rang, I had consistently feared the worst. News that Matthew was injured or dead. During that time, I lived on a precipice of fear, just waiting for the inevitable to happen, yet always escaping the final drop. But on the morning of June 26, all my worst fears came true. Matthew was dead.
Welcome back to The Talk. Barbara Eden is here, and we're talking about her new book, Genie Out of the Bottle. That was Barbara reading about a phone call that no parent ever wants to receive. Matthew was 35 when he died.
That's right.
How did he die?
He died from heroin, overdose of heroin, yeah. And we all knew it. He was fighting the good fight. Actually, he was going to get married the next month. And he thought he had beaten it. We all thought he'd beaten it, but he hadn't. He hadn't. And the reason I talk about it, and the reason I put it in the book, is because so many parents become, I don't know, what is the word? They just feel that, oh, my darling little baby, my darling little child will never, never get near drugs. Actually, Mike and I didn't even know what drugs were all about. Mm-hmm. We had nothing to do with it. And apparently, Matthew told me later that when he was 8 years old, he had been introduced to pot.
Wow. How did that happen?
With children that lived on our block. And these were people who I thought were fairly affluent, you know. You think they go to private schools, they're all fine, they're nice little children. I see them on the street. But the thing is, you don't know about the parents. And I didn't know the parents. And I guess they were growing it in their backyard. But we didn't know. And it goes from there. You know, it progresses. But parents must be alert. You have to be. And in the strangest places. I often tell people who talk to me about it, you know, I was raised to have great privacy as a child. My mother never went into my drawers. She didn't mess with my closet because it was private. No, kids can't be private anymore. You have to go in their drawers. You have to go in their closet. You must know what your children are doing. And you must educate yourself as to what all these drugs are. We finally got him into a rehab when he was 19. This is another thing. You have to recognize it before they're 18, or you can't get them help. Because they'll say no. And there's nothing you can do to get them back in there.
Is there anything else you would have done differently besides looking through his things?
Well, being alert, I guess. Being alert. I don't think it helped that his father and I got a divorce when he was about 9. I don't think that helped at all. I mean, you know, looking in retrospect, I would have done a lot of things differently in that regard.
How did you first find out that he was taking drugs? How old was he at the time?
I didn't know until he was 19. He'd been living with his dad since he was 12, and only visiting with me and my mother. And during that time, I had remarried and I was living part-time in Chicago. So he came to live with me full-time and go to college down in the valley, the city college. And every morning he'd leave with his books, get in the car, say, "Goodbye, Mom," kiss me on the cheek. And I'd think, great, he's going, you know, he's making an effort to go to college. And then one morning I got up and I saw his books. And I thought, oh my, he forgot his books. I mean, my heart went to my feet. I grabbed the books, I got in my car, I drove down to the school and went into the office and asked, where is Matthew and Sarah? I have his books, he forgot his books. And they looked, he wasn't registered.
Oh, boy.
He wasn't registered, no.
If there's a parent out there who's maybe going through some of these issues right now, do you have any message that you can maybe give to them? Insight?
Well, I think just get help. There is no insight. Drugs are pervasive and they are sneaky, and you don't know. You have to deal with it differently. Every family deals with it differently. The most important thing, though, is to get help. Go to Al-Anon.
Barbara, thank you for sharing your story with us, and thank you for being here on the program. The complete I Dream of Genie series is available on DVD, and Barbara's book, Genie Out of the Bottle, is in stores now. Everyone in the audience is going home with a copy. We'll be right back.